After surviving a catastrophic accident at age 17, he went on to become a personal injury attorney with a particular focus on representing traumatic brain injury survivors. He is the author of Saving the Subject, a deeply personal memoir exploring human value beyond achievement. Cameron challenges leaders to reconsider what makes people irreplaceable in an era of AI, automation, and unprecedented change. These are the themes he will explore during his keynote titled "No One Builds Alone: What Your Forefathers Knew in 1920." So please give a warm welcome and help me welcome Mr. Fethauer.
Thank you, April, for that warm welcome, and thank you to Lisa and Darren and everyone else who helped put this event together. My name is Cameron Fethauer. I'm a husband, father, author, and local attorney. I came here today to think with you about a truth that suffering forced into me 10 years ago, a truth your founders understood in 1920, and a truth that is going to become all the more relevant as reshape what it means to build anything at all. I'd like to start with where it all went wrong for me. It was September 18th, 2015. I was 17 years old, riding a skateboard outside my parents' driveway, teaching my 9-year-old neighbor Hannah some tricks. There was no road, all we had was the road to play on. There were no sidewalks. The speed limit was set at 20 miles per hour. But the driver of the speeding Lexus didn't seem to mind the sign. My head shattered the windshield, my body dented the rooftop, and I flew 20 feet away in a neighbor's yard. Hannah, having heard the crash but not seeing it, ran fast into her grandmother's house screaming, "Cameron's been shot, Cameron's been shot." About a week later, my father found one of my sneakers dangling 60 feet up in a tree. I was airlifted to Indianapolis, where I was diagnosed with the highest level of severe diffuse axonal brain injury down to my brainstem. One of the worst kinds of traumatic brain injury. I remained in an unmedicated coma for the next 3 weeks. 90% never wake up. And those that do are often shells of themselves. The doctors actually pulled my family aside and gave the prognosis. If Cameron does wake up, he may think and behave like an 8-year-old for the rest of his life. And that was the hopeful version. The other, permanent vegetative state. And the doctors weren't entirely wrong, because when my eyes finally opened, I found myself in a world I didn't recognize. I couldn't walk, talk, or even recall the name of my fiancée, Chelsea, who I proposed to just a month prior. Like an Etch-a-Sketch, I had been shaken clean, and I had to relearn just about everything. Despite it all, I made what has been deemed a miraculous recovery, discharged from acute rehab 6 months ahead of schedule, having gone from a wheelchair to a walker in about a week, from a walker to a gait belt in about a month, and from a gait belt to my high school diploma at the end of the year. But that miracle, it was limited to what I call the objective world of surfaces and appearances. Because I looked okay on the outside, everyone assumed I was all good on the inside. But the way I look and perform in the objective world tells you very little about how I'm doing at the subjective inner level. I'm sure some of you can relate to that. After my second brain surgery, the doctors handed me this, a 3D model of my natural skull today, showing the 1/3 that's missing. As you could imagine, I felt so different after my brain injury. The headaches, the depression, the suicidal ideation, the sensitivity to everything, light, noise, medications, emotions, everything. My faith told me that I was more than a brain, but the brain injury whispered something else. As I wrote in my journal years ago, "This is your forever life, Cameron. The way you feel today, depressed, dragged, undone, is the way you will always feel. Those strange looks, they'll keep coming. Those close friends, they'll keep running. Those goals of yours, they'll need rewriting." These existential burdens weighed heavily on me, and I couldn't carry them alone. No one can. The accident hit during my senior year of high school, right after two big decisions. The first was walking away from the varsity basketball team to commit myself fully to pastoral ministry. The second was asking my girlfriend, Chelsea, to marry me. She said yes, but that yes was soon put to the test. Despite every rational and objective reason not to, Chelsea stayed by my side throughout my entire recovery. She lived out the marriage vows in sickness and in health before it even started. No one was sure if I'd ever wake up from that coma, or if I did wake up, what I'd be like. Chelsea's parents even said, "We understand if you want to leave Cameron given his prognosis," to which she responded, "I'd push him in a wheelchair for the rest of my life if I have to." Despite it all, we got married the same date we planned to before the accident, March 26, 2016. That means we'll celebrate 10 years of marriage this coming March. You're gonna have to clap again here in a second. What's more, today happens to be Chelsea's 30th birthday. Happy birthday, babe. What I've learned in these last 10 years of recovery boils down to this. Life isn't individual, it's relational. Life is personal only because it is communal. In other words, no one can be themselves by themselves. For no one heals alone, no one rises alone, and no one overcomes alone. Relationships are not accessories to our existence. They're the very ground of it. Yet in many professions like engineering or law, we often cling to this myth of the self-made hero, the lone innovator, or the rock star engineer. But I know firsthand how misleading that vision is, how lonely it is, and how frankly uninspiring it is. The truth and nothing but the truth is that we are all fragile beings who find ourselves in a world where everything can change in an instant, where what we have can go away at any moment, or where what we do can be done better by someone or something else, like an AI. But there's this one thing that cannot be taken away in this life, this one ground we can always stand firm on. who we are and whose we are. Given my prior commitment to pastoral ministry, Chelsea and I moved here to Louisville, Kentucky, where I pursued a theological education at the Southern Baptist Seminary. Chelsea encouraged me to get a lawyer for my injury case, and this is how we met Matthew Shad in New Albany, Indiana. Matt didn't just resolve my case quickly, he became like family, seeing my value beyond what I could do. I actually got inspired to go to law school after meeting Matt. I wanted to help other injured people like myself, especially brain injury victims. But that wasn't the only initial reason I wanted to go to law school. The doctors kept telling me, Cameron, the hardest things for you are going to be higher level thinking, executive function, just using your brain. So I thought, man, if I could do the law school admission test, I could do anything else, the LSAT. So I spent about 6 months studying for it, got a high enough score to get into a great law school, Indiana University, Maurer School of Law. Shout out to the Hoosiers winning the Natty. I heard some claps about that. So I was in between on whether to include that in my script, but thankfully that was resolved beforehand. But so once I get to law school, this is when the story actually gets kind of wild. At the end of my first year of law school, my wife gave birth to our daughter, Scarlett Jane, who is now 6 years old and constantly impressing us. But then came my second year of law school, when we found out my wife was pregnant again, and pregnant during the heart of the COVID-19 pandemic. On July 31st, 2020, Chelsea gave birth to my other daughter, Charlie. She also gave birth to my son, Albert. And we can't forget my other daughter, Frankie. Yes, triplets. Following an emergency C-section, and she carried them to almost 36 weeks. In case the numbers came at you too fast like they did for me, I fathered 4 children in law school within 14 months, all with the same woman. By the grace of God and Chelsea's support, I still graduated on time with my peers and passed the bar exam. Today, I'm a licensed attorney, personal injury attorney in Indiana and Kentucky, working with the same attorney who worked my own case 9 years ago. I share all of this to support my argument that no one builds alone, because I couldn't build any of this success on my own. I needed Matt Shad, I needed Chelsea, I needed those doctors, I needed those therapists, and so many others. That's why learning about the history of your organization struck a chord with me. See, your founders grasped this truth that suffering forced into me, that no one can be themselves by themselves, but applied it in the context of engineering. So let's go back to that founding generation, to the mud and smoke of 1918, to see why they held up this relational philosophy for engineers. World War I is winding down. America's demobilizing, sending troops back home, scaling back the massive war machine that we'd built. But Major General William Black, the Army's chief of engineers, he's not ready to let it all fade. He's seen too much in those trenches to just pack up and move on. During the war, engineers like yourselves, military and civilian alike, were thrust together in ways they'd never imagined. They're out there building roads while shells rain down, throwing up bridges over rivers turned to muck, and piecing together ports and warehouses, all under the constant threat of gas, artillery, and the unknown. No one person could do this alone. It took experts from every corner, sharing knowledge and relying on each other to turn individual impossibility into a mutual victory. General Black looks at that, the sweat, the breakthroughs, the lives saved through sheer collaboration. And he thinks, what if we lose this? What if peacetime sends us back to our separate silos, forgetting the relational bonds that actually won the war? On January 1st, 1920, the Society of American Military Engineers, SAME, was born. The announcement was direct. This society shall serve no selfish purpose. It is dedicated to patriotism and national security. 2 months later, SAME adopted a constitution spelling out its mission to develop a spirit of cooperation and mutual understanding, and to foster relations of helpful interest between civil and military engineering. Do you hear that? Not just coordination, not just networking, relationships. SAME wasn't born from a love of gadgets or technical specs. It was forged in the recognition that real threats, the kind that test a nation, demand human collaboration. Or, as I learned after rebuilding my own life after brain injury, no one builds alone. That's your 100+ year legacy, guys, to preserve not just knowledge, but each other. Now, fast forward to today, with AI reshaping everything. Some of you may be experiencing your own version of what I felt in that hospital bed 10 years ago. A sense that your own world is shifting and changing. Maybe you are the structural engineer watching AI assist with load calculations that used to take hours, or the project manager using AI software to optimize timelines, or the veteran wondering how your hard-won field wisdom stacks up against LLMs running endless scenarios. Here's the thing, AI isn't perfect, not even close. It makes mistakes, it misses context, but it is getting better and faster than anyone predicted. When everything I could do was stripped away, I had to face this question. Does my worth depend solely on what I can do or what I can produce? With the rise and encroachment of AI on the professions, I believe many of you are about to wrestle with a similar kind of question, and perhaps some of you already are. Different crisis, same fear. But here's what I know and what your founders knew. The most powerful tool in the world is worthless without the personal judgment to wield it wisely. Yes, AI can crunch numbers and run simulations, but on a job site, when lives depend on your call, that's not a mere calculation. That's a moral responsibility. AI can optimize project timelines, but at 9 p.m. when your team is exhausted and morale is dropping, you're not just managing data, you're carrying the burden of others and reminding them why this matters. That's irreplaceable relational leadership. AI will keep getting more powerful, but it will never have presence. Presence means having real skin in the game. When you make a call that could cost lives or careers, you're putting your reputation on the line, your relationship with your team and your own conscience. AI can simulate thinking, but it can't carry that moral weight because it has nothing real at stake. Your organization got it right after the world's first total war. It's not about superior tools, it's about superior relationships. SAME was created to safeguard that collaboration ethos, and it's what will keep you irreplaceable now and always. This reminds me every day that I nearly lost it all. But in the breaking, I found what really holds me together isn't anything physical, or empirical. It's everything relational. I am not self-made. I am not self-sufficient. I cannot build anything that matters on my own. Neither can you. So build your roads, build your bridges, create your systems, but never forget that no one builds alone. Thank you.